afternoon, and you're all very welcome for joining us today for the UCD Postgraduate Virtual Open Day. And today we are with the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering at UCD. So my name is Katie O'Neill and I'm the marketing here at the college. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our head of school, Professor Peter Kennedy.
Hello and welcome everybody. As Katie said, I'm Peter Kennedy, Professor of Microelectronic Engineering and Head of the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering in UCD. So today we're talking about our programs, the Master of Engineering programs in Electronic and Computer Engineering and in Electrical Power Engineering. And we have two graduates who will be able to answer some questions and talk to you afterwards about those programs. So in UCD, as in other schools in Ireland, we think of electronic engineering as using electrons and photons to process information primarily. And electrical or electrical power engineering is really processing electrical energy in terms of energy. So there's kind of an energy emphasis, power systems emphasis on one side, and the other is towards processing information. Everything from communications to wireless, to data processing, signal processing, image processing, and so on, including control. So the two programs are basically the same in structure. They are 2 years of study. The first year you take in the first semester or first trimester of the year from September to Christmas, you take 6 modules, which would be course modules, coursework like you've seen in other programs. From January then until August, there's a placement in industry, and this is a paid placement in industry. Oftentimes industry sees this as a way of getting to know our graduates. For the graduates, it's a chance to see what it's like to work in a practical setting. So that completes year 1. Year 2 then has more coursework. There are 7 modules in year 2. And then there's a research project. Now, the research project can either be some kind of continuation of something you've done and became interested in while on the work placement, or it can be a project that comes from the school itself, some of the people in the school. So the academics in the school are, on the electronic side, will be interested in things like communications, signal processing, data science, and so on. And on the electrical side, power systems, energy, control, that type of thing. So the two programs are similar. The difference being basically that emphasis. Are you going more for electronic type modules and a career on the information side of things, or are you going on the power side, the energy side? If we look at the prospects afterwards, both industries are, and both degrees are highly in demand at the moment. Electronics, if you look around in the world, there's more and more electronics going into all businesses, whether that's simply processing information in things like finance, health sciences, and so on, or it's actually in the infrastructure or the hardware end of things. So more and more electronics everywhere, and that looks like it will continue indefinitely into the future. On the power side, a lot of the engineers who are involved in building power systems are actually coming to retirement age. So worldwide, there's a shortage of power engineers, and therefore the power side is seeing great demand. So whichever of these programs you choose, they're great, very interesting programs, having a work placement, paid work placement, which is unique, and also you have the research project. And then the career opportunities afterwards are very strong. We're going to be talking primarily about these two programs, the electronic and computer engineering and the electrical power engineering. I'll just mention in passing that we have another new program in optical engineering, which is for people who will be more interested in optics, photonics, towards the fiber side of communications, and also processing imaging with applications into, say, the medical space. There's also a biomedical engineering program, which has part of it has an emphasis on materials, and the other part has an emphasis on the electronics, the signal processing part of those. So we can also talk about those later if anyone is interested. But first, maybe you can hear from a graduate of the Electronic and Computer Engineering program. This is Tarun Goel, who came to us to do his undergraduate studies in Maynooth, and then came and did his master's in UCD. So I pass over now to Tarun.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, so I pretty much joined in 2019 in the UCD master's program after graduating from Maynooth with an undergrad in the same course study area. So pretty much I liked the module choices initially to begin with. So the first year had 6 modules in the first semester, and they were all technical focused. So they give you kind of the inner workings of how to become a computer engineer pretty much. So it would range from like control theory to RF engineering, and also you had a bit of, you know, signal processing involved with it. And they also give you a lot of choices, so I enjoyed that. And also there's a lot of support when you go into your second semester. So there's the internship, which you get for 8 months in your second semester, ranging from January to September. And again, you know, you're given a lot of support in that. So that was something that really appealed to me when I was looking at master's opportunities in UCD. Then the second year was when, you know, you kind of more specialized, you have a bit more options and a bit more freedom. So you choose your master's project, and that master project runs for the whole year, and you get, you know, you get module choices as well. So I was more interested in the data science aspect of engineering. So I like both hardware and software. So it had a nice mix for me as well. So that's where I chose modules like machine learning, data science with Python. So they give you an intro into Python as well, which is also highly requested nowadays. So currently I'm actually working in 3 Ireland as a radio access network engineer. So I'm in the performance team specifically in a grad program with 3 Ireland. And a lot of the stuff I've covered when it comes to the communication side of things from my degree I have been using in my current role, which really helps. And I feel overall more confidence after doing my master's rather than just going from an undergrad to work, which I actually trialed as well. I did an internship during the summer before I started my master's. So it's nice that I you know, the master's overall allowed me to kind of get a more understanding into the fundamentals of electronics and computers. And overall, I'm enjoying where I'm at currently.
Thanks very much, Tarun. Our second graduate is Patrick Larkin. Now, Patrick worked on the electrical side, so he's in the energy business. Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So I started out as some of you maybe did on the bachelor's program in UCD, and in my third year it came to a choice of whether I wanted to leave or finish the bachelor's or continue on to the master's. So from my perspective, I just thought it was to get an extra bit of qualification just for an extra year of work when you're really doing the sort of similar amount of work as the 4-year BE would have been, you know, sort of same modules, you have to do a project too. I thought I might as well stay the extra year and get a better qualification. And a big factor in me choosing that was the fact that you get to go out and work. So the internship, it's a brilliant opportunity for getting a foot into the industry, a bit of exposure to the world of work, and really a chance to apply what you've learned to real world problems. So obviously you could do that. You couldn't do that without doing a master's, but the contacts you usually have and the opportunities you can go to is really worth doing it. And also you get paid for a bit of your college time, which is, you know, really worth it as well. So why did I had a choice then obviously of the electronic side or the electrical side? I chose the electrical just because, in my view, there's a lot of greater challenges to overcome in the electrical side of things, especially the power industry. So, you know, the power industry, especially in Ireland, is sort of laid dormant for like, you know, hundreds of years, but certainly for decades. And recently it's been asked to revolutionize itself with more renewables and batteries and demand side response units and stuff. So there's a massive need for innovation in the area. And the current workforce, as Peter says, a lot of them retire and a lot of them really aren't prepared to deal with these problems or don't really want to. So I think there's a huge need for new thinking there, and new engineers with fresh ideas, and there's a whole new field of jobs that are sort of establishing themselves now. So that's why I chose electrical over electronic. I was also a bit more interested in bigger machines rather than communication theory and that sort of side of things. So that was just a personal preference of mine. So my experience with the masters, it is tough work. Like, there's no point in denying it, but I don't think it's any tougher than what any of you have gone through so far. I mean, in my opinion, third year was probably the most intense of all the years. So realistically, if you've been able to get through third year, you should be able to do a master's if you're anyone's doubting your capabilities there. So there's a lot of technical modules which are really, really useful to the industry. There's loads of companies that are crying out for graduates who know things about reactive power and different power electronics, like power compensators, etc. So there's it's really, really good stuff to learn. And yeah, so aside from the modules of the internship, so I was very lucky. I got into a company called Electroute, which is an energy trading company. So I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't think of electrical engineers as having that side of working. Like, maybe your head, you think of it as, just standing in a field looking at a pylon or something like that. But there's a whole range of careers there, and Electroute is one of them. So basically, they provide a route to market for the likes of wind generators or waste energy generators, or maybe even in the future different technologies like hydrogen or batteries, etc. And they basically trade the power in the markets to try and make as much money for those technologies as possible, which increases their share in the market and helps to decarbonize Ireland's electricity sector, which is obviously very important at the minute with EU targets to meet, etc. Yeah, it's got a huge amount of work and a huge exposure into the sector. And honestly, I think, if you want to be a professional engineer, that internship is probably the best learning curve you can go through. It's better than anything that you've been taught in college, because it really shows what the industry wants, and it shows how you apply what you've learned to what needs to be done. So after that, then in fifth year, there was more modules and the research project. So I proposed my own project with my employer, Electroute, because I knew I would enjoy the project more if it was something I was actually interested in looking at. That's not to say, there's obviously a lot of interesting projects proposed by the academics in UCD. My personal perspective was that I wanted to do something that I was interested in. So I looked at Ireland's 2030 renewable targets and basically quantified how much that would cost in the market. And it was a really, really interesting experience. And I probably research wouldn't have been something I would have thought about before, but that project, I really, really learned an awful lot from it too. So in the future, I'm back working with Electroute, and I'm already involved in a couple of very interesting projects. So I'd say studying the masters definitely probably gives you an edge over bachelors. Maybe unfairly, considering that very similar amounts of work, but it's if it's something you're considering, I would definitely recommend it. And it's particularly because of that internship experience. It really gives you a foot in the door in the industry, and if you're going to interviews or anything, to be able to say that you took 8 months out to go and work somewhere like that and see all these different things, it's really, for employers, that's a really big benefit. So it's my experience. Probably droned on there, but so yeah, definitely would recommend the masters anyway.
No, I think that was very interesting to hear from all of you, and getting the student insights of those who've just recently been through our masters really adds value to the listeners. Just a few questions coming in, and I think the first one I'll pick up on is because it was something you both mentioned, your dissertation, your research project. Someone's asking, in terms of completing the minor dissertation, how much flexibility do they get in selecting their own topic? or are they all pre-assigned? Now, I know, Patrick, you mentioned you picked your own topic, but I guess, is that common, or how does it actually work? And maybe we'll go to Patrick first and then Tarun.
Yeah, so there's obviously no obligation to suggest your own if you don't want to, if you're not really sure what you're looking at. But the way mine worked anyway was my employer expressed an interest in working with me, and I obviously had an interest with them too. And I worked with Damien Flynn, who's in the electrical department, about what things would be of interest to sort of all three parties. So, you know, we met up one day and we all discussed things that, you know, we were interested in looking at, especially in terms of the Irish market, Irish electricity market. That's sort of the area I was interested in. And there really was, yeah, an awful lot of flexibility in what, you know, I wanted to do, and what Damien felt as well was of relevance to what a master's project should constitute. So yeah, I'd say, like, if you have an idea for a research project, I mean, lecturers really like that, because it shows, you know, a willingness to learn there, and it also saves them picking up something for you to do. So yeah, that would be my view.
I think it's just worth mentioning that Damien is actually the program director for the program that you completed as well, Damien Flynn. And Tarun, just your experience.
Yeah, so again, like, you can tie in with your employer from the internship to do a research master's with them, or you can pick from the list. And like, again, it's about kind of your interest and finding a lecturer who you think may also be interested in the project that you want to do, if you're choosing your own project. So UCD definitely encourages that. I know for a fact that a few of my friends actually, you know, contacted professors about, you know, their project ideas, and kind of, you know, you can talk back and forth and decide on a final topic as well. But also the list is very large, so you have a range of choices initially as well. I actually picked one of those as well. I picked one of the list items, and I work with Professor Robert Shorten at UCD. He's in the control team. I think he's no longer there right now, but yeah, so like, I was very interested in my project. It was a sort of, you know, a blockchain based project. Maybe you haven't heard of that, but it's a sort of optimization type problem. And you know, I thought that was a very cool area to go in. It involves a lot of communication stuff, and it involves a lot of, you know, hardware and software. So, you know, again, like, that really interests me. And, you know, the professors are very supportive as well. They overall, you know, they do weekly meetings and so on, and they guide you through it if you're, you know, stuck on something. And you know, again, it's a research project. You know, you're going to kind of make mistakes, and then they'll guide you along that path. And because you have the full year to do it, you know, it's a great learning experience, especially after you've done the internship. Because in the internship, you're also kind of in that stage where, you know, you're completely learning. You know, you're in the workplace for the first time, and, you know, you don't know where to start, I guess, but there's someone to kind of guide you, because you usually have a mentor in your internship, and that's pretty much the project. So, yeah.
That's really interesting, Tarun, and I think that leads nicely into the next question we've received, and we'll stay with you for the moment if you don't mind. Someone asking, in terms of actually securing, so you both obviously did masters where there was an internship, and you obviously secured good internships, but was it a difficult process? What was the process, and did you get supports to secure the internships?
Yeah, so it was actually a very simple process. So from week one, they kind of, they set you up with meetings with there's a specific team inside UCD that coordinates internships for all students. So there's a department design, and they, on week one, pretty much guide you, or they give you presentations on how to, you know, secure an internship. There was multiple, I think there was 3 in total, but, you know, it ranges from how to, you know, ace your interview, how to ace your CV, and then there's a website, a specific dedicated website called UCD Careers Connect, if I recall, and on that there's like hundreds of internships open for, you know, this was just electronic and computer. This was my stream. There's also biomed and the other degrees that are in UCD. and you just send your CV on. You of course you try to match your CV to modify it to the job description, which is also stated on that. And you know, the careers internship coordinators, they also guide you through that process if you ever need. There's also a CV building department in UCD, so you can schedule a meeting with them, and they'll literally one-on-one with you on your CV and to see whether it's, you know, suitable to your personality. And also sometimes you can show them the role that you're applying to, and they'll kind of tell you whether your CV, you know, is tailored towards that role, which I've done as well. So I applied to a few places as well. I like in the internship, I applied to a good few, like 10 plus, and you know, they get back to you. They get back to you like promptly, and that's what's nice as well, you know, because the college kind of backs it. You know, sometimes when you apply yourself online, you don't, you know, you don't necessarily receive that like acknowledgement that, okay, they've read my CV, you know, or do they want me or not. But in UCD, they always, like, you know, they go through the college and sometimes directly to you and let you know whether you've been accepted or you know, and feedback based on that as well. So that's nice.
Thanks, Tarun. I don't know, Patrick, if you have anything additional to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think Tarun hit the nail on the head there. It's just the amount of different contacts you see, obviously amassed over the years, is really beneficial. You know, it's a lot easier to get an internship through this program than it is to try and do it by yourself. That was just my experience of it, so it was very, very helpful. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Peter, I think the next question is probably most appropriate for you as head of school. So someone just recognizing that the college and the schools specifically is very research intensive, and how does that benefit teaching and ultimately the students on the master's programs?
Okay, so I think this is, if you go back and you ask yourself the fundamental question, why am I doing a master's? I remember when I graduated, I felt I didn't know enough. And so I went to do a master's, basically to get more coursework. But when you're getting coursework, you're really looking for a leg up to get you started into a career. So as Tarun said, he didn't know about data science, and he learned about data science and learned about machine learning. But in particular, he learned about blockchain from one of the academics who was active in research in that area. So it's that was a special opportunity that you wouldn't get in another university. Or it depends very much on what the academics are doing. So for example, we have some people who are very, very strong world leaders in circuit design, for example. So if you want to learn from a leader in circuit design and get a leg up for a career in that area, you first can take coursework from this expert and then do a research project at the highest standards in the world. So having experts in research who are both teaching at an advanced level and giving you the opportunity to do research and engage with industry at that advanced level gives you a real head start in terms of where you're going to go with your career. So that's the real difference between what you might get at bachelor's level, which is pretty much something that anybody can get, to what you get at master's level, which is both the advanced coursework and the research experience from a true expert.
Thanks, Peter. I just have one final question that's come in. So someone just mentioned they have a 4-year bachelor's degree in electronic engineering, but they don't have any work experience. Would you recommend the ME or the MN? Just see, they're looking at the electronic and computer engineering. And of course, we offer that particular master's in a 2-year version or a 1-year version.
Okay, so if you just want coursework, then the MNGSC is fine. You do 1 year, but it's coursework and a project. If you want work experience, then the ME is the way to go, because you have this 8-month placement in work. And maybe Patrick will comment on this, but I think having the combination of the coursework first, then the work placement, it allows you to identify very clearly where you would like to go with your career. And then in the 2nd year, you can pick courses and a project that take you even further in the direction you want to go. So if you want to prepare for industry, probably the ME is a better route to take. Maybe Patrick, give a comment on that.
Yeah, I'd say in my opinion, the more experience you can get in industry, the better, because it's like, you know, teaching v doing. Is just if you want to end up in a career in, you know, electrical or electronic engineering, the more exposure you get to what's going on, the more networks you make, the better it is. So I would recommend the ME then in that case.
Thank you very much. And we don't have any further questions. So I think that concludes our webinar today. All that's left for me to do is to thank very much the head of school, Professor Peter Kennedy, for giving us his time today. And of course, our two very recent graduates, Patrick Larkin and Tarun Goel. So thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all well. Thank you.